All right, today's edition of Ask David Simpson a Question is from Joy Handley. How do you tell the terns apart? Well, we're out here at Sebastian Inlet State Park, south of the inlet on the beach, with a little gathering of terns behind us. So we'll discuss a little bit about our winter collection of tern species out here. We're at the beach, so we tend to see the larger terns tend to be mostly royal terns out here. Royal terns are known for their male pattern baldness look, if you will. Some people call it the friar tuck look. The white cap and a black line of hair, if you will, running from the eye around the back of the head to the other eye. Caspian terns are very similar looking, a little bit bigger and bulkier than royal terns. Have more of a blocky head, thick bill, almost a gull-like look to them. And they have the same black running around the back of their head, but they also have a salt and pepper forehead. The crown and the forehead are generally speckled black and white. Some individuals will have white on the forehead, but not nearly as extensive as you see on the royal terns. Another bird, a relative of the royal terns is behind us here, is the sandwich tern. Sandwich tern has the same pattern and very similar look to a royal tern. They're very coastal. You rarely ever see them inland from the beach. You often see them offshore. They have a similar build to royal tern, but they're smaller, distinctly smaller when they're together, and a black, thin black bill with a yellow tip on it, the mustard tip they sometimes refer to it as. And we sometimes see Forster's terns. We don't have any in this particular spot, but Forster's terns are here in the wintertime. They're generally the smallest species of tern that we see here in Florida in the wintertime. They're very white overall, a little bit of black on the wingtips, very small, often look like a check mark in flight. They fly with their bill pointed straight down, so they have that horizontal axis of the body and then the bill going 90-degree angle from that as they're looking for food. Mostly white on the head, with two little solid dark patches around the eyes, almost look like they have black eyes. Young birds will have some streaking on the back of the neck, but it's not as prevalent as you would see on royal and sandwich terns. Another species we see mostly in the fall, and they may be lingering in this time. They're very similar to the Forster's terns, a little bit smaller. They have black on the eye and black on the nape, and you can separate them from the immature Forster terns that have some black on the nape, in that the black is continuous. There's no contrast between the black on the eye and the black on the nape on a common tern, whereas the few Forster's terns, the young Forster terns that we see that have black on the nape, you can see a distinct contrast between the black on the eye patch and the black on the nape. The black on the nape is much more salt and peppery, like the forehead of a Caspian tern. Also, common terns in the fall and winter and spring have a dark carpal bar. When the wing is folded, there's a dark bar on the leading edge of on the top of the wing, and when they're flying, there's a dark bar on the leading edge of the wing, and that's called a carpal bar, and that's present in common terns, but not in Forster's terns. So again, here on the beach, you may see common terns. You rarely see common terns inland, just like sandwich terns. I think that covers most of the terns that are going to be here in the fall and winter in Florida. The other species that we see behind here is black skimmer, which is sort of a tern. They're kind of related to terns, but they're in their own little group. They're pretty obvious with the black and white, or black and red bill, and the black on the top and the white underneath on them. They often hang out near inlets. We will see them in inland areas as well, but they're often on the beaches near the inlets. We also have several species of wintering gulls here. So if we want to dive into the gulls, there's herring gull out here. That's usually our largest species of gull at Sebastian Inlet, unless a great black-back gull or a glaucous gull happens to show up here. Young herring gulls are very brown, very bulky, heavy build, big chested, and tend to be kind of messy looking underneath. They're kind of smudgy brown underneath. Young lesser black-back gulls, on the other hand, are a little bit smaller, more slender than a herring gull. Not nearly as brown underneath, and the brown is much more neat streaks of brown as opposed to smudgy brown marks on them. And as the lesser black-back gulls get older, they get a slaty slaty gray color on their back, much like the adults. So, while ring-billed gull is the next species down in the size, and they have a pearly gray back. Most of most ring-billed gulls that we see here in Florida are second-year birds. The juveniles will molt into their first winter or second winter birds in this area, and they have that pearly gray on the back, which distinguishes them fairly easily from the other gulls. Laughing gull is the smallest and the most common gull here, and generally most common on the coastal areas. They have a slaty gray back, similar to a lesser black-back gull, and a black bill, black legs. Generally, you get a few odd individuals with red on the bill and the legs, but mostly black on the bill and the legs. And they're the most vocal. They have that laughing-like call to them. Now, the fun one to look for on the beach, and we don't have one right here right now, but is the Franklin's gull, which is a smaller version of the laughing gull, generally found out west in the Great Plains and migrate through Texas, but a few end up here in Florida. And they have a smaller bill, a smaller head, and shorter legs than a laughing gull. So if they're in with the other laughing gulls, they can often disappear behind them because of their smaller size and smaller legs. They have a very distinctive half-hooded look to them, which young laughing gulls are quite variable in their plumage, but they never really have that full half-hood look that a young Franklin's gull has. And young Franklin's gulls are actually a lot more clean underneath, cleaner white underneath. There's a lot more grayish brown on the young laughing gulls, so they're actually easier to tell in flight than they are when they're sitting on the ground. So I think that covers most of our birds, gulls and terns, that you'll see on the beaches here in Florida in the wintertime. So hopefully that answers your question, Joy.